Hello and welcome to yet another video. So far, we have seen how to make a very basic CRUD app using Express and Mongoose. We have a get route, a post route, a delete, and an edit route, update route. So far, so good. Everything in this code is good and is working without any errors. However, it is not as per the standards that we use in industry and that will help us when this project scales to a very large level. That is, the way we write code is not according to a very common standard known as MVC, Model View Controller. What we have to do is we have to separate this code into controllers, into models, and the rest in view. Before doing that, let me give you a brief overview what MVC is or what sort of code we put in M, we put in V, and we put in C. Let's start with controllers. Controllers is what contains the logic. The controllers will contain functions that will do all the heavy lifting. Model contain the code that talks to the database. What is left will be stored in the view. Along with MVC, we have some other directories as well, routes, utils, services. We will see them as we go along. So let's convert this into MVC. First up, let me create few folders. We already have a folder models. That is, I created that keeping the MVC in mind only. So let me create controllers. Let me create a folder called routes. What it will hold, we will see that in a minute. Let me also create a config. It will hold the database connection string. Going forward, we will also need folders like utils, which will hold the utility files. And we might also need something known as services. So let's create those. Let me start with config. Inside that config, let me create a file called dbjs. Obvious by the name, it will hold the database connection string. Let me take that from here. Let me go in here. I will not just put this single line, rather, I will create a function. Let's say connect to DB. You can name it whatever you want. Inside that, I will put this. Now, mongoose.connect, it returns a promise. What I'm also doing some sort of error handling. Let me put this inside try, and because as you know, it will give you a promise. So let us wait for the promise to be resolved. In case there is any error in the resolution of the promise, so let us catch that error. Let us console that error, right? Await. So this function has to be async. Everything is fine. What I will do is I will export this function from here. Mongoose, however, is undefined in this particular file. So what I'll also do is I will take this from here and the import mongoose, and I will put it here. So now, previously the mongoose connect was written here. What will now be written here will be connect to DB coming from config dbjs. And yes, because it will return a promise, let's wait for the promise to resolve. Always remember, in Node, you have to write the complete URL, a complete path involving the extension. In React, it was optional. In Node, it isn't. Okay, so config is done with. Let's see if the database connection still works or not. As you can see, we are not getting any error in the console. That means everything is fine. Okay. Let us go into the routes now. Because all the API routes that we have, API endpoints that we have, they are related to the students. We can fetch the students, add a new student, or update or delete any student. That is, all the routes right now, they hold logic related to students. Inside routes folder, let me create a file. Let's call it student route.js, student route. Let's call it routes. It will hold multiple routes. Now, in this, let me import a router from Express. Well, it's optional. You can either import the Express whole, or you can only import the router. If I'm not wrong, router will be imported as this. Let me create a variable student router. And what this will hold? Student router will be an instance of the Express router. What are we doing here? Let me tell you. So we have a post route with the endpoint this, and whenever a request is received, the function that is executed is this. We similarly have a get route, delete, put. So what I'll do is, now, instead of app.get or app.post, it will be student.get. Similarly, student.post, put, and delete. The order does not matter. It will take the exact two arguments, what route and what to do when a request is received on that route. So let me take this from here. Let me put it in post. Very similarly, let me take this from here. Let me put it in get and delete and put as well. There you go. So whenever we'll get a request, a get request at this endpoint, we will like to call a function, a handler. In index.js, the logic of that handler, that is the handler's body, the function's body, is written right there. What we'll do instead in our router is we will call a function fetch students, the definition of which will not be written here. So let me do it for all. Add student. You can name them whatever you want. They have a update student. And very similarly, delete student. These are functions that will be written in the controller. That is, these are the controller functions. Well, we don't have anything in the controller as of yet. Just like we created student routes in routes, let me create a student controller, and we will define these four functions inside that file. Let me do that. Whatever the name was, fetch students. Then we had, I think we had add student. Student it is. We have update student. And we have, yes, delete student. All these four functions, because they will be used in routes, so they have to be exported from here. So let me write export and if you take a look at index.js, all these four functions are asynchronous. So let me also add async here. Let me add this in front of all the four functions. So these four functions are exported from controller. Then they will be imported in the routes. Let me do that. There you go. Oops, sorry. And right. If you remember this actually we haven't done that. So these are the four routes. After these, Let me also do this. Let me export the whole router, student router, which contains these 4 routes from this file, because this student router is what we will be using in our index.js. Instead of all these 4, what we will use is, after connecting to the database, we will say, let the Express uh, server, that is, which we know by the name of app, let it use the student router. Now, because app.use takes 2 arguments, so what we are saying is, as you can see, all the 4 routes, they start with a common word student. So let me say, if you get any request that starts with student, route that or forward that to the student router. Then the student router will decide whether it's a get, post, put, patch, whatever request is, and what is the rest of the endpoint is. In the student router now, what we'll do is we'll remove this common word slash student because it is already there in the index. So let me do it like this. So what will happen now? Let me tell you the flow. Of course, index.js is the one that will be executed whenever the server is started. So whenever the server is started, it will try to connect to the database. The code was written previously right here, but now it will be coming from config.db.js. If there is no problem in there, then the server will know that whenever there is any request that starts with student, it will be routed to student router. That is when the request will come, but before that, the server will be started. Whenever the request comes, if it starts with /student, it will be routed to student router instead of being processed right here. So we don't need these here. Rather, we need them at student router. So let's say if there is any get request to student router, the function fetch students will be called from the controller. And if there is any post request, the function add student will be called, and so on. However, in the controller, these functions are simply just placeholders as of now. So what I'll do now is I will take these definitions from here and I will put them in the controller. Before doing that, all the 4 functions, they will accept 2 arguments, request and response. That is common among all 4. Now let us put the definitions one by one. Let's first take the fetch students, that is the get request. Let's open that. Let's take this from here. Let's put it here. There you go. Let's have some spacing. Let's take the post request, which is this. Let's put it inside this. And what is, okay, the update, that is the put request. Let's take all the code from here and put it in the update student. And the delete one, let's take the delete request and let's put it right here. Work is not done yet. Work is not done yet. First, we need student model imported on this file now. It was already imported on index. We are not on index, so we have to import student model. Let's import that student model 1. Okay, so we will also need find because it comes from Mongoose. So let's import Mongoose as well. And what else? We don't need these console logs anymore. There you go. No more console logs. Yes, I think that is done. We now can remove all these from here And if you can now notice that is okay, we don't need student model here as well. Well, that is the purpose of following MVC. You can now see the index.js is absolutely, just the bare minimum and very easy to read and understand. Let's see if the server is still functioning or not. Okay, so we have an error which says, okay, in student controller. Okay. So it does not have the extension. Okay. So in student routes, the controller does not. Oh, okay. Well, that will happen. Don't worry. And okay, we still okay. So okay, in controller, the model does not have the extension. And well, the server is started. MVC. There is no change in the code, hence there is no change in the functionality. Just that where the code is written, where the code is placed, that is what is only changed. This way of writing code helps us scale the projects to very big levels as well. In the next video, we will introduce how we can use middlewares, and then we will take this code even further. I hope you like this video. Thank you very much.